Hey, it's Patrick from J&P Cycles, and let's talk about the top 10 tools I think you need to add to your collection. Now, I'm assuming that you have just a basic set of hand tools in your garage. 3/8 ratchet, 1/4-inch ratchet, screwdrivers, so on and so forth. So if you have your base tools covered, these are 10 things I would add to make your life easier when you're working on your motorcycle. For me, the first one right off the bat must have a torque wrench. A couple of torque wrenches if possible, just to cover the tire range of readings, because some of them are gonna require inch-pound readings, some of them are going to require foot-pound readings. So a couple of torque wrenches, one in inch-pounds, one in foot-pounds, are high up on my list when working on my motorcycle. Next, you know what, this may seem simple, but a little even cheap set of picks. When you're trying to even like fish a bolt out from behind your engine or working on electrical components, that little bitty set of picks comes in super handy. I hardly go through a day without using one of them little picks when I'm working on something here in the shop. The next thing is a lifesaver, a rethreading set. Even a small one like this with just standard tap and dies is going to save you a lot of headache. Even if it's just cleaning up chrome bolts, getting the burrs off of them, or if you have to rethread something, if something's stripped out, this will save you a ton of headache. Highly recommend a little tap and die set. Next, snap ring pliers. And again, there are all kinds of sizes out there. So maybe get you a couple different sizes of snap ring pliers, buy them in a set, because when you're working on stuff, those little bitty snap rings without a set of snap ring pliers can be a huge pain. You can send them flying off your garage and in a place that'll never be found, or you can simply just tear up the snap ring when you're working on it without snap ring pliers. Next up, ratcheting wrenches. You're gonna use these more than you think. And a lot of times you can't get an actual ratchet on something, you only get a wrench on it, and having to do the old crank, move it, takes you a lot more time than just throwing a ratcheting wrench on there and spinning that bolt or nut right off. Ratcheting wrenches high up on my list. Another thing, the little wobble extensions that allow the socket to just slightly wiggle around on the end can be a lifesaver. If you don't have direct access to a bolt, sometimes you can't quite get on the bolt cleanly with a straight extension and socket. The little bit of wobble in the end of that will make those hard to reach nuts and bolts that much easier to get on and off. Next up, this may seem a little bit odd, but one of these rubber and urethane mallets. One side's rubber, one side is urethane. Not that I'm saying you should be banging on your motorcycle with a hammer all the time, but let's face it, sometimes that does happen. Having a hammer that's not gonna leave a mark if you have to tap on something is very nice. Keep you from tearing up your motorcycle. The next one, something I'm not super fond of using, but we all end up using sooner or later, tire irons. I don't know how you would change a tire without them, you probably couldn't. And there's a ton of different shapes and sizes out there. Invest in a few different styles and it'll go a long way when you're spooning those tires on and off your wheel. Next up, a right angle die grinder, an air powered one. Now this is assuming you have a compressor. If you don't have a compressor, you should probably put that on the list as well. But these little right angle die grinders, you can put cutting wheels on them, you can put sanding wheels on them, you can put buffing wheels on them. They'll come in very useful, especially if you're fabbing up little parts, cleaning up nuts and bolts, super helpful. And lastly, you may not think that you need one of these, but a soldering iron. If you're doing any kind of electrical connections, even if it's just simple stuff with turn signals and taillights, using butt connectors isn't the best possible connection. The best possible connection is soldering those wires together, and also helps keep your wiring harness nice and slim rather than having a whole bundle of butt connectors or spade connectors in there. Soldering it is the way to go. So if you're gonna be doing any type of lighting projects or wiring harness projects, you really need a good soldering iron. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a comment. Go work on those motorcycles.